This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 473, recorded Wednesday, December 6th, 2023. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. Joining me this week, Stephen ESC is back, and you can find him at twitch.tv/StephenESC. Really, wherever you can find Stephen, you can find Stephen ESC. Or is that backwards? I might have had that backwards. You can find him here.
True.
Which is great. So one of my favorite ways to start the month is the first episode of the month. That is Stephen's Week. Flag in
Indeed.
Sand, foot down. Welcome.
That's right. Thank you, kind sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. I had a good stream today. That's why I've got streaming on the brain and playing some Satisfactory, which is basically the only nerdy thing that I've been up to in the last little while. They had an update. I really like the game, and I've been playing for years, but whenever they update and give you new stuff, you tend to spend a little bit more time in there. And we've been waiting up until recently for an update to Minecraft. Minecraft had a minor update yesterday, and so I was kind of twiddling my thumbs in Minecraft waiting for that update to happen so that I can move on with other projects. And so I thought, well, I'll continue to play Minecraft on the weekends, but during the week when I stream, it's been all Satisfactory all the time. And it's been fun. I've been liking it. I'm working on designing stuff based on Transformers, and it's a slow game, but I've got the patience for it. And I feel like that seems to be my MO in building games, is like big projects that take a long time. And, you know, it doesn't feel like you accomplish something every stream, which can be a weird kind of walk away. Like you kind of have to say, okay, like I know I've made progress, but I didn't check the box. I didn't check off the task list. You know, like I'm the kind of person that may or may not add things to the to-do list that are already done just so I can check something off. So
nice.
Yeah. So I've done that definitely when I've got like a lot of like chores around the house or whatever. Like you do 2 or 3 things. One of them wasn't on the list, so you immediately add it and then check it off to be like, yeah, look at all I've done today. Yeah, I do that all the time. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's really all that I've been up to in terms of nerdy stuff outside of regular work. Has just been, you know, some extra time streaming in Satisfactory. So people can go check that out. There's VODs on Joel Duggan VODs on YouTube, and of course on the Twitch channel. I've been streaming almost every day. I take at least a day off a week, but I've been popping back in. We've had some mighty crappy weather, not to dwell on the weather, but it's now December. It's been wet and snowy and rainy, and have not been spending any time outside. So that means extra time for video games.
Well, like you said, it's a game that you enjoy like that. It's not, doesn't necessarily feel like work when you get to, you know, if you're playing it and it's something that you typically stream, you might as well share what you're doing with everyone. So it's one of those things that doesn't seem like work necessarily. Oh,
exactly. And I've remarked on stream recently that the 80s kid in me feels a lot better about playing a video game all Saturday afternoon when it's foggy and gray and 2 degrees. And like, you know, you don't feel like you're wasting any sunshine or wasting the day, despite the fact that it's my job. Like it's perfectly acceptable to do it on a sunny day. It's just that it feels nicer when you're like, I am not missing anything, you know, nothing at all. So that part at least has been good. And I'm actually looking at getting into some other games and hopefully talking about more games on the Citadel Cafe in the future, because I'm struggling to find things that I want to watch on stream in terms of like streaming services. And so I think in the new year, I'm going to be culling down a couple of my services and spending a little bit more time in games, and maybe trying to find some narrative games so that I can still have a story to talk about on the Citadel Cafe, but maybe it'll be a sci-fi story that I've experienced through a game as opposed to just watching a show.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, but we've got a couple of good shows to talk about later on, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, what have you been up to in the last little while since you've been last on?
Oh, well, I guess it's been a while since I've been on any real social media since early in the year, and I just thought I'd kind of wet my toes, so to speak, and just get back into it a little bit. But there's, the the dumpster fire inferno that is Twitter. So I've been sort of not inclined to spend a lot of time over there. So I've just looking at different options and sort of stumbled onto and become slightly infatuated by Mastodon.
Okay.
Or like the greater Fediverse. It's I didn't know what that was at first, but it's basically I like the idea of it. So like I'm still fairly new to it, but the word Fediverse is like a word mashup of federation and universe. So it's like instead of it being one centralized thing like Twitter, where everybody has to sign up for one account, you find everyone through one primary account. And then if it starts to dive, like it seems to be right now, like Twitter seems to be right now, then if it goes under, then everything that you've created is just gone, like at the whim of the company going under. So the idea of the Fediverse is like, it's decentralized, and I might be talking about this wrong because I'm new to it, and so the idea is basically if, say, Twitter wasn't just all in one spot, but there were a number of different places that hosted a Twitter community. So like with Mastodon, there's MSTDN, so Mastodon without the vowels in it, .ca, and that's kind of the pretty official Canadian version of Mastodon, and so I've got my account there, but I can still see what everyone across all of the other Mastodon communities posts. So it's kind of like I'm over here in the Canada one, but I can still see or like I'm on the Canadian Twitter, quote, just as an example, but I can still see what everyone's posting across like all the different Twitters. And so then if like the person who originally set up this community just goes, I don't have the time to do this anymore, so I'm going to stop. You can actually sort of move your account over to another one, take all of your followers, take all of your posts and whatever with you, and then just basically sign up your account with a different community so that somebody else has created and you're still part of the conversation. Or if you want to set it up on like your own web hosting service, you can be a community of one, but then still see the greater posts, like all of the posts that everyone else is putting out there. So it just seems like, and it's all open source stuff, so nobody can own it.
Right.
So it's like one of these, it's basically, unless everybody in the world decided to just stop using Mastodon, it won't go away because of the actions of one or a few people kind of thing. Seems pretty neat.
There's a couple of social networks that I've seen popping around. I'm trying to remember the one that needs an invite. I don't think it's Mastodon. There's
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky, that's the one. Every now and again, some of my artist, not friends, because we're Facebook friends, but like I don't actually know them. A lot of artists that I've added over the years that I've interviewed on Comics Coast to Coast, or just like different people that I want to follow. For a while there, to try and get rid of all the chaff that was in Facebook, what I did was I followed a lot of artist pages, so that most of the time my feed on Facebook was like mom, dad, sister, and then like art, and which is great. But then I'll see like every now and again, one of these artists I'll follow will pop up and say, hey, I've got a dozen invites to Blue Sky if anybody wants one. And then of course, by the time I even look at it, they've all gone and been, divvied out to different people, because I don't check Facebook that often.
I have an account there. It took a while to get an invite, but I can probably send you one. It's by some of the, I think, original creators of Twitter, and so it's still semi-centralized, but also, from what I understand, but then still built on some of the open stuff. So it may be like a good happy medium between the two. It's I haven't played around with that one very much, but like the idea of the whole Fediverse, where, like I said, you can have multiple Twitters or multiple Mastodons. Like there are Fediverse versions of like a lot of the current popular social media platforms. Like there's, Mastodon equals Twitter, PeerTube equals YouTube, PixelFed is Instagram, Friendica is Facebook, and there are other ones as well. So it's like, but the number of people who are active on these is just a drop in the bucket compared to the big ones, obviously. But just, whether it actually kind of matures into something that becomes a place where people, like a ton of people go, it's like the idea of it it feels more, the dabbling I've done so far, it feels a little bit more community based, and there are no algorithms to boost your stuff higher up. It's just, if you follow people, you're going to get that stuff in the order that the people write it. So it's, and there are no ads. That's one of the things you can't you're not allowed to put an ad up. So it's just chatting.
That's nice about the ads. Now, I wonder, like, because you can't do ads, can you do things like, hey, I'm streaming live, here's my link. Can you do that? Or is that considered advertising?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I mean, I know that like there are artists who are like, hey, everybody, I've done it. I think it's meant to really squash corporations coming in
Paid
and
advertising.
advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've seen people like who are artists going, hey, everyone, I've got some cool new t-shirts that I've designed and they're up on my, they're on my website. If you want to come and have a look, that'd be great. I'd really appreciate it. So it's, very not earnest, but just, just feels like honest conversation or like, hey, I've done a thing. Can you come and have a look at it? It'd be great if you, if you felt like buying something, that'd be cool too. But it's not 20% off your next iPhone purchase if you buy a car and I don't know,
yeah, all this
spend $6,000 on a vacation as well, kind of thing.
Well, and the thing is, like, I enjoy Instagram. It's probably the only social media network that I browse consistently besides TikTok. But TikTok is like brain off, just looking at stuff.
Oh yeah.
Instagram is like I'm looking at friends and looking at, like, a friend going hiking or family Christmas dinners and like just stuff like that. Catching up with like a wider network of friends. I don't do that on Facebook. I do that on Instagram. But Instagram, especially in the stories, my gosh, there's a lot of ads now. And it's really annoying to the point where I end up just shutting the app down and be like, well, whatever, I guess whatever story I'm not getting now, I'll just get it later because I guess I'm not interested in just scrolling through so many ads. And I find them like auto audio on, like their video and sound. And I'm just like, that's not what I want. Like, I'd rather not deal with that. And I also find too on Instagram, I don't necessarily scroll the post feed very much. It's normally just the stories that I try to catch. And then if I do see like, oh, that's really cool, that person went hiking, then I'll go to their actual feed and be just like, oh, there's lots of cool pictures here. Like that kind of stuff. Like I tend to need the story to point me in the right direction. Twitter,
that's a cool way to do it.
I don't consume. I post to Twitter all the time, but that's like I'm streaming live. Come hang out. Thanks for hanging out. Here's what I did, and here's who I sent you all to. I use it as like a networking connective alert system. I don't
paste.
Yeah, I don't read it very often, and I probably should be more on top of this because when all of the social media stuff was happening, like I was just getting into art and entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff, and I jumped on most of them. I not all of them are still around. Like Google had one that went away, and I've had others that have disappeared too. I used to use Slack. Now I use Discord, like just that kind of stuff.
Right.
And now I should be looking more at like a Twitter replacement. Cause like you said, like the majority of my alerts and I'm streaming now and connecting with other streamers happens on Twitter. And if that ever goes away, then I'm going to have to start over again. However, like I did it when Threads came out to Instagram and I started a Threads account. They made it completely impossible to really keep track of. Like it's behind other things, like it's a whole other app. You see people post to it, but you go there and all I saw was people just posting the exact same stuff they were posting on Twitter, just in a different platform.
Do you find the user interface on Threads confusing? Like I'm scrolling down and I can't tell who's somebody I follow, who's somebody I don't follow. It's just like, I should say, it looks like most of the things in my threads are people I don't follow.
Yes.
But I have no idea why they're there. It's like, what? It almost feels like Instagram where every second or third post is an ad. Over here, it's every second or third thread or post on Threads is like them saying, hey, you should go connect with this person you're not actually connected with. And drives me crazy.
They did something like that on Twitter a while ago, and they defaulted you to the discovery feed as opposed to the people you're actually following. People you're actually following, it's still not, it's logarithmic. It's not chronological still, but at least you can say default, start me on the people I'm following feed. I don't care about people I'm not following. That's the whole purpose of me following only a small, I say small, I probably follow about 1,000 people on Twitter, but like they're not all people. Some of them are like news accounts and like, there are some things I find useful on Twitter. Like if something big happens in the news, like CBC or local Halifax news, like it's nice to get that. Like it's nice to catch that right away. Usually like weather emergency related, that kind of thing. So like I can understand that aspect of it. I still call it Twitter, refuse to call it X because it's stupid. And they haven't even changed the website. It's still twitter.com. It's not x.com.
Yeah. But still, it's like, you've got tweets and retweets and it's like, what do you call it? X's and X's. It's just dumb.
dumb. It's super dumb.
Yeah. And then on Mastodon, they call them toots, like a tooting
Like a
Mastodon.
tooting. Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah,
really,
it's
really
cute.
fun. Yeah, no, I like
Actually,
it.
one thing I do like on Mastodon, which is far superior to Twitter, is like when you repost something or like retweet it, it's actually not like when you retweet something, it basically takes it and posts it on your time, unless they've changed it in the last little while, but it posts it to your timeline. And if you get if somebody goes cool and likes it, then you get one heart on your post. It doesn't actually accumulate on the original post. It's like that's the way it used to be. So I haven't been on Twitter in ages. So unless they've changed that, then that's the way it is. Whereas on Mastodon, it's like Tumblr, where if you repost something, you're basically boosting up the original one. So every time somebody reposts it or likes it, all of the credit goes back to the original post that somebody created. So it's that's one of the things I think is fantastic about it. But yeah, I mean it's still all pretty new, and I'm new to it, but I find it pretty intriguing overall. The idea of like a decentralized social network.
I know they all have to start somewhere, but I feel like because of just how much the other platforms have in terms of user base, like trying to take a dent out of Twitch and YouTube, good luck. Like, and I'm not saying I love Twitch. Like it's got some issues, and so does YouTube. Like, for example, my Joel Duggan Voz channel on YouTube recently passed 1,000 subs, which means that I can turn on advertising. And
cool.
YouTube has removed a lot of the advertising choices that you have. You basically have ads on or off. Make sure that it's obviously it doesn't have any copyright stuff in it. And that's including stuff that they're going to false positive because you used copyright free music, but then so did somebody else on YouTube and they decided to copyright their video. And so YouTube thinks that their music is copywritten, but it's not. And so you're better off to just not have any music in any of your videos. So that's fine. But then at the same time, if you have either run ads, yes or no, and then after yes, you can say, do you want us to also include mid-roll ads? And for an edited video, and I know this because Johnny, my co-host on the Spawn Chunks, was kind enough to run me through this. On an edited video where he goes and fades to black every 5 minutes or so, as like a natural break in the flow of the video, that's where YouTube sticks an ad automatically. It's just, oh, he's faded to black, we'll do an ad there. But on a stream VOD, it just puts ads every 3 to 5 minutes. Like it would be infuriating to watch.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't even stay on that person's channel. Like I'd be like, bye, see ya, can't deal. So I have to either manually go in and delete all of the ads and then now thankfully I take breaks once an hour. So it's very easy to find my 5-minute break screen and just throw an ad block there. But ultimately it's just too much work for too little gain. So what I've done is I don't run mid-roll ads. And the problem with not running mid-roll ads is that they removed your ability to choose what kind of ads you want to run. They just pick whatever ad they want to run. So previously in a mid-roll ad, you could just say, run an ad every 3 minutes, but don't have it be a video ad. Just have like a little pop-up, like just something that doesn't interrupt the video, just kind of like pops up and then goes away after 30 seconds. Like that's normal. That happens all the time. It happens on Twitch, all that kind of stuff. But they don't let you choose that anymore. They used to. And so I came in too late, I guess, with my VODs. So anyway, like that kind of stuff, like YouTube and Twitch are not perfect, but like I'm not streaming on YouTube because I've seen the community and I don't want to deal with that kind of chat, and so I deal with the shortcomings of Twitch because I'd much rather have a modest, we'll say, well-behaved in the grand scheme community compared to what I see elsewhere. It's the same reason why my Discord is closed, and why people that support this podcast, people that support me on Patreon or me on Twitch, they get access to the Discord because it keeps out the riffraff. Like people don't want to pay $1 to be an asshole. They want to do it for free. And so it means that, you don't have to deal with hardly any of that stuff, which is great. So for me, social networks, they get broader and broader, and then you just end up being either part of the noise where like good luck being noticed, or you're just opening up yourself to like all these bad actors and all these conversations that you just don't want to have. Case in point, we mentioned TikTok earlier. Any kind of video that's talking about something serious on TikTok, the comment section is a dumpster fire
Oh my
of
goodness, yeah.
people completely missing the point and just wanting to make themselves heard. Like every now and again there'll be a good user that can handle it, but most of the time it's just attracts a lot of the negative people that just want to take others down or just want to watch the world burn. And so I've slowly over time on both Facebook and on TikTok, instead of art and family and friends, on TikTok, it's mostly like gym videos and puppies. That's my auto feed. I was like, I'm fine with that. That's great.
Dear algorithm, please just give me this.
Yeah, a little bit of travel, a little bit of hiking, but then mostly dogs. And it's just like, it's on purpose. If I see a dog video, I like it. I'll make sure I watch it to the end. And if I see something else, I'll skip it before it gets done. One of my favorite things though on TikTok right now, to end on a positive note, is you'll see something along the lines of like someone giving you advice. More often it's like the men or women giving each other advice, unsolicited. And
Right.
some girl will be like, hey guys, you know what I really want? You know what you really need to know about women to go on a date? And, or like, hey, have you ever tried to do this on Snapchat? And then the video is edited and it says,
Oh yeah.
nope. Anyway, and it just like plays like Black Betty or like a Kickstart My Heart or some 80s rock. And it's just like the most ridiculous, over the top, like America's Funniest Home Videos, like some guy, getting hit in the nuts on a skateboard, or some big monster truck doing a flip. And it's basically like, we don't care, watch this. And it's basically just like nonsense.
Complete hijack.
And it makes me laugh so hard. Like it's such a clean sense of humor. They're not being derogatory. They mention nothing about the original poster. It's just like, nope. Anyway. And then they just here's some cool shit. Like it's just nice. So fun. And I watch too much of that sometimes. I realize like, oh, it's midnight. I really should not be watching TikToks.
That's the danger.
Time to go. Yeah. Speaking of things that we maybe should not be watching, let's move into the things that we have been watching. And I will kick us off by sharing the fact that I watched Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is available on Disney Plus, because I think it's on part of the Star streaming service, and that is owned by Disney and part of Disney Plus. And so I watched it. Is it bad? No. Is it good? Also no. I don't think anyone needs to see this. If you're an Indiana Jones fan, I feel like you're probably jaded because of the Crystal Skull, and rightly so. And they made all the same mistakes in this one. And it doesn't have Shia LaBeouf in it. Actually, they remove Indiana Jones's son with one line. Like there's not even a photo. So they just erased his entire existence with a throwaway line in this movie, which I did find kind of funny.
Wow.
But I don't even think this needed to get made. I think that somehow they appealed to Harrison Ford's nostalgia, and he said that he wouldn't want to do it unless it was a good story. I don't think it was a good story. There were some fun moments with him. Like he's still a fantastic actor. And despite the context, he is fantastic in those shoes, but he's 80 and it shows. And they don't pretend he's not. Like they definitely make sure you realize that he's an old man. But they don't beat that to death, which is good. But it just kind of takes away a lot of the kind of, I don't want to say gravitas, but some of the oomph that the others have. Even when he was a little bit older, like even when he was in his 50s, like it still wasn't, it was still better than this. There's also some terrible moments with CG animated Gumby Harrison Ford that are like, it's just subpar. You can see
Gumby is in like he's
like rubber.
He's rubbery bendy in it.
Rubbery bendy. Like you go like
really?
There's a scene where Indiana Jones is running across the roof of a train, as one might do in an Indiana Jones movie, and it looks like a cartoon. Like
I'm glad you clarified that. As one might do.
It's terrible. It's not even a close up. It's just like you couldn't, with the budget that you have, you couldn't just film him in a film somebody, a stunt double in a green screen jumping from one thing to another. You had to animate that. Like it was awful, completely needless. There's a scene that from the trailer that I thought looked really wonky, and looks just as wonky in the film when he runs a horse through a subway tunnel. along a street. And granted, they had to do a lot of CG because like they're portraying, I think it's New York in the 60s. So like you can't just shoot that. Like that doesn't
Right.
exist anymore. And so that stuff felt very green screen and not good green screen like The Mandalorian. It was really very obviously green screen. And yeah, like on this, there's other things like it's very formulaic. There's Indy, there's a woman that's witty and sharp tongued and fun, and then there's a kid, and you're just like, it's just, it feels very samey, you know?
That's too bad.
Yeah, and Teddy the kid is terrible, and like the acting is mediocre, but the writing for the character is just abysmal. There is a decent car scene chase somewhere in Africa, and that was fun because like I can't remember what they're called, but Indy and the crew are on this little like three-wheeled thing. It's not a car, it's not a bike. It's kind of a weird kind of mix between the two. And they're bombing around these old cobblestone streets trying to catch somebody. And like that's fun. It's unbelievable, but it's also fun. You know, because somebody's hanging out the window and punching somebody else in the face and trying not to get shot and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. But then the movie quickly descends into like the bad guys are one note and boring. The climactic scene went somewhere they shouldn't have. I don't know how spoilery I want to get on this, so I will simply say the thing that I am not looking for in an Indiana Jones movie is science fiction. And time travel is up there. And that's what I don't want from an Indiana Jones film. And I was talking about this with Johnny, and I think that's the difference, is that there's weird and wonderful things that happen in Indiana Jones movies, but they've always been more spiritual, more magical. You know, the Ark of the Covenant, the Temple of Doom with Kalima, and like God worship and voodoo. And then there's also the Holy Grail. Like it's very Christian based, but it's also like that's a lot of history. So it makes sense to like, well, what if the unbelievable is actually real, but it's all spiritual or magical?
But it also kind of like makes sense for him as an archaeologist as well, that he would be interested in all of this.
Exactly. Interested in the truth, right? And history. Yeah. But then you get into like the Crystal Skull, it's aliens. You know, you get into this, it's time travel. And it's like, and it kind of really takes the rug out from underneath the history by implying that time travel is the reason that history exists. And then you get into that time travel loop, right? Like they couldn't avoid that either. And so it really falls apart, and it becomes unbelievable and eye-rolly when it should have been a much more somber. I would have been okay with a somber goodbye, you know, or passing the torch, you know, to somebody else to do it, you know, and that's fine. But the ending,
great idea, actually.
Yeah, the ending with in his apartment was really like drug out. Like it felt like it should have been a lot more, I don't know, there was no chemistry or passion there. It didn't land well with me. And like I said, it's not a terrible movie, but it's just one of those movies where you're just like, they didn't need to make that. So like, this is the fifth one. They should have stopped at 3. You know, I'm sure there's other franchises out there where people are just like, I was on board until they did this, and now I'm just like, I'm done. You know, it's Game of Thrones, you know, like they were doing so well, and then the last 2 seasons they just dropped the ball, and it sucks because like you don't want it to fail. You go in there going like, I like Harrison Ford. He's really good in Shrinking with the guy from How I Met Your Mother. Like he plays a really good grumpy old guy.
Siegel,
Siegel, thank you. And it's just like I want it to be good, and it just wasn't. I think I paused it 3 or 4 times and ended up on my phone for 20 minutes. Like it wasn't, was not the best. So can't recommend it unless you're going into it with rose-colored glasses or being aware that you're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah. It's funny though, because sometimes I find if you go into something knowing or hearing that it's not good, the bar of expectations is super low. So it almost allows you to enjoy the parts that are okay in it. Like, was it Mobius?
Morbius, I think is what it's called.
That got panned. But my wife and I love vampire shows and movies, huge fans of Buffy and whatnot. So we thought, we'll give it a go. Vampires. And we heard that it's crappy, but you know, vampires. And we enjoyed it. We couldn't, because we expected to be so bad. It surpassed all of our expectations because our expectations were super, super low. I may end up watching it anyway because my wife is a fan of the Indiana Jones movies, but I'll let her know. Okay. Joel has said, and remember what he said about the latest Avatar movie. It's super eye-rolly, and it was. You were right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it had moments, but it's one of those things that I just could not get past. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's it for the things on my side of what I've been watching, where it's only me that's seen it. What have you been watching?
I guess since you and I last recorded, I watched all of Pluto and caught the Marvel movies in theater. The Pluto movie, for those who it caught me, it was one of those things. I saw a clip on TikTok and somebody goes, "What is this? An Astro Boy remake?" And I went, "Oh, is that what it's supposed to be?" So I went kind of looked into it. It's basically the original Astro Boy story from the 1960s. There was one story arc in it that had that featured a robot that was out wreaking havoc and trying to kill other robots named Pluto. So what they did is the writer actually took that and did and recreated it as like a side story, and it's like an 8 episode arc. It's very serious, very dark by comparison. Don't necessarily want to get into too much detail about it because it's not our main chat for the day. But but in Astro Boy's not even the main character in it. It's just the story arc. There's that same robot Pluto is out and basically looking to murder the 7 greatest robots on the planet so that he can be the greatest one remaining, sort of thing. So it ends up being sort of a robot murder mystery. I found it pretty interesting, and it was, I thought, really well done. I always like the way the sci-fi stuff looked in Astro Boy, and so this was like a modern quality version of all of the cool old sci-fi stuff that was in I shouldn't say, funny to say old sci-fi stuff, but the way that the future was portrayed in the Astro Boy cartoons way back when, it's like the same kind of look, but just the quality and finish on all of the artwork was just that much better. So yes, if you're a fan of the original Astro Boy series and you don't mind things like a little bit of a darker storyline, then I'd recommend this for sure. I found the ending was a little off. Like, it felt like the thing that was threatening should have still happened the way the bad guy said it was going to, and not the way that it played out. I feel like there'd still be some sort of like catastrophe more than what happened. So I don't want to give the spoilers out, but I feel like I was a little let down by the ending. So I'll just leave it at that. But overall, 8 episodes. It's a mini series. You're not in for a huge investment of time, so I would recommend it.
I watched the original Astro Boy. That was like one of my afternoon, like it was either lunchtime or I can't remember, maybe it was first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that was the first thing in the morning. Like, you wake up and grab breakfast and watch Astro
ahead
Boy.
of school. Yeah, because I remember my sister and I used to go to other people's places because Mom always had to work at like 7 a.m. as a nurse. Kids from the neighborhood would all go to this one place, and then you'd all walk to school kind of together. I mean, this is childhood in the 80s. That was always on. Like, you had to find something that everybody liked, and I always really liked it because it was animation and whatever. And at the time, I didn't realize it was, of course, that it was Japanese. Like, I just thought it was just straight up, cartoons for kids, right? But this looks cool. Like, and it does have those Astro Boy vibes. Like, I can see the shape of his head. I can see like some of those like nods, and it looks really well animated. I usually have trouble with anime getting into it. I usually have to go with like American anime, just because I find that the stuff that's dubbed or whatever can be a little bit hard to watch sometimes. But often I forgive the talking head scenes because usually the action and the storytelling and the cinematography is so good that it's worth sticking around for. So yeah, I'll have to add it to my list. Yeah. It scrolled by, and I was like, oh, that's something new that looks cool. But then like I didn't really look into it because I was on Netflix to watch something else.
If you remember the original cartoon, like some of the characters from it at all, then you'll remember the professor.
Yep.
There's a professor with a giant nose.
Yep.
And they sort of recreate him in a way that still has those exaggerated features, but not crazy exaggerated. So it almost takes those ridiculousness of the proportions in those characters and brings them into a slightly more realistic design. So I think they nailed it. Like, it's again, it's darker. Don't go expecting the kind of lighthearted Astro Boy thing.
No, I can tell from the trailer.
It's good. So I'd recommend it.
Very, very cool.
And then going back to what I said about like the bar of expectations being very low, so that I enjoyed it. I'm going to just talk about the Marvels briefly. And I don't want to, just using that as a bit of a segue, but I actually don't think it was as bad as everyone said it was. Like it's only got like a 6.0 or something like that on IMDb, but I think there are a ton of people out there that just don't like Brie Larson for some reason.
I don't know why. She's
Me
adorable. Like she's amazing.
And she's like, she's an acting force as well. And so I think she did a great job in the movie. It's definitely more of a lighthearted, fun movie because it's basically about Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, and Monica Rambeau, the as of yet no official superhero name yet attached to her, and Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, all becoming, like you can see it in the trailer. So they all become like cosmically intertwined because all of their powers are light based. So when one of them uses their power at the same time another one's using their power, then they swap places. And so it sort of creates this thing where Captain Marvel is ridiculously powerful, but she couldn't use her power all the time because if she did while someone else did, then she'd get pulled out of her fighting and then potentially bring one of the other less prepared three in to the peril that she was facing, kind of thing. It sort of sets it up to be like this little bit slapsticky in that sense where there's just like swapping around and stuff. Like the chemistry between the three of them I thought was really great. And I always feel bad, I'm going to mispronounce her name again, but Ms. Marvel, is it Iman Vellani?
Yeah, that's her.
Her chemistry in this is, she's so believable as Kamala Khan. It's ridiculous. And I went and watched some interviews with her after the fact, and I see why now. She's actually like a Marvel super fan, the same way that Kamala Khan is. So she's basically that character. One of the interviews, someone was asking her questions. She said, well, the whole Kang Dynasty thing and the way that this is going to play out, it's a bit confusing. So I actually had to go back and read it 2 times to get a sense of how I think they might incorporate that into the MCU. And she was like naming off all of these characters and how how they sort of interacted with each other and why they might go this direction as opposed to that direction. So I'm like, okay, she is in the know. So the way Kamala Khan talks about all of these characters and then just fangirling over all of them, that is Iman Vellani right there. So maybe that's just her enthusiasm for all of that stuff. Like she even said that in one of the interviews, when she found out that she was going to be costumed by the person who did the costumes for the TV show S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever, she goes, oh, do you mean so-and-so? Like, so-and-so? Like, she knew the name of the person who was in charge of wardrobe for S.H.I.E.L.D. and was super excited that she was going to get the person. She's like an over-the-top super fan. So that came across earnestly. Like, it felt very, very true in her character, and she was like the fun glue that kept a lot of the chemistry going in the movie. So it was pretty good.
She's also 21.
Oh, really?
They didn't cast a 30-year-old to play a high school student or even mid-20s. Yeah. Like she's 21. And when she was doing, when did she do the Ms. Marvel TV series? That would have been 3 or 4 years ago filming it.
Yeah.
So she would have been 17, at the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that I find so believable about her is that she's so talented for how old she is that they didn't have to go cast older to get her in that same sort of like energy.
Yeah.
Because I've seen interviews with her as well. And I find that she has the same energy as Kamala Khan. Like the Iman and Kamala are just very, very similar in terms of that like verbal presentation, the way that she kind of like skips halfway through one sentence and starts another one and then goes back and like she's all over the place. And it's very cute. I find her adorable. Like I think she's very, very well cast.
Yeah, me too. This is her first role. She hasn't acted before.
Yeah. Talk about
mind-blowing.
Sink or swim, right?
Yeah. One of the interviews, her I think it was her aunt sent her like a thing in WhatsApp or what, basically one of their messaging apps, like, hey, you should go do this. No, seriously, you should go do this. And then after being pushed a couple of times, she finally relented and went to audition. But yeah, what a dream! Going from being like a high school student and then just right into Ms. Marvel.
So I've not heard anything really harsh about the Marvels, the people that I tend to follow.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't dig, right? Because I know that just the internet, you can't please any Marvel fan right now. The Marvel fans are becoming the new Star Wars fans. Like you just can't please anybody. And I know I can be one of them because like I really don't like Taika Waititi. I don't like James Gunn's storytelling. Like I don't like their humor. It feels forced. And that was the criticism that I have heard, is that the humor in this is not great. It's a little bit ham-fisted some of the time. I also feel like the other things that I've seen have been more of a criticism of like the MCU as a whole rather than like the Marvel sucks and therefore the MCU sucks. It's more like, no, there's a lot of other things that are failing in the MCU and people are bringing that failure attitude to the Marvels, and that's why it's getting panned. It's not as bad as people say it is what I get from some of the people that I find are a little bit more balanced when I'm watching like reviews. There's a couple of people I follow on TikTok that I quite like because they tend to be like, look, it's not terrible, but like, here's why I think it's getting an undeserved, slamming is because like, it's not just this. It's like the Loki has some ups and downs, and then you also have Ant-Man had some problems, and like they just kind of go through the list of like, this is what people are bringing as far as baggage goes, to the Marvels. And I think it's also difficult to write for a character like Captain Marvel in the same way that it's difficult to write for Superman, right? And
yeah,
I like that idea. I thought at first that the whole power swapping light thing was just like a gimmick in the story. And I thought, oh God, like that's going to get tired real soon. But I do like your note on the fact that because Captain Marvel is so powerful and the light powers swap their places, if they happen to use it at the same time, then she can't use her powers all the time, which means that there's more of a challenge for her. Like she can't just go in and just like blast everything and win.
She had to do a lot more hand-to-hand combat than you would expect Captain Marvel to have to. So
right.
Like that to me, that worked well. I thought that was well done. My biggest complaint is it feels like there should have been another Captain Marvel movie before this, because the villain in this is basically set off by something that Captain Marvel did somewhere between the end of Captain Marvel in 1995 and today in 2023.
Good Lord.
And so, yeah. And so like, basically what this person has done and sought out in order to, it's all in spite of the thing that Captain Marvel did. And we don't even know when it happened. It was just like at the end of her movie that she's got to go and basically stop them from doing what they're doing kind of thing. And then, but she basically goes off and does something to that effect, but we don't get to see any of it. And then like, what is this? 30 years later, this is the fallout from it. And so it's just like, wait, that's what's going on right now. Like, why didn't we get to see all of that other cool stuff in between? So it just felt like this movie is about undoing the stuff to a degree that she did in between movies, which to me is just like weird. Like, why didn't we get that? I would have loved to have gotten that. In
a way, Marvel is making a lot of the same mistakes that DC was making in that they're rushing it. It's like they're scrambling and it's like they do Endgame and then Spider-Man No Way Home does really well, but then they make a couple of missteps and everyone calls them on it because they're used to epic level stuff, right? And then they start to scramble. And rather than just like sticking with their guns and going at the pace that would be rewarding in like another 5 years or 10 years or whatever, they're rushing it. And everybody is just, you can see that a mile away now because DC has been rushing it for 10 years and they keep on falling. Right. And so I that's the general feedback that I see. I didn't go see it, and I probably will just wait and watch it whenever it comes to Disney Plus. That's provided I still have Disney Plus, because I think that may be one of the services that I axe because they're going up by like $3 or $4 a month this month, and they don't have the library. Like I love the content on some fronts, like Ahsoka, fantastic. Will 100% resub whenever the next Star Wars thing comes out, because they do very well. In Dave Filoni we trust.
Or like maybe if you, I may join you on that front, but maybe what we can do is like wait till 4 episodes, like basically wait till a month goes by, then sub and then catch, something like that. Either way, sorry to interrupt, but I feel like I might join you on that front of handpicking subscription services. Yeah, I need to do better with that and just be like, this is going to come out for the next 2 months. I'll resub for 2 months and then just cancel it immediately after I know that, okay, my next month is going to encase the final episodes of this thing. And then when it's done, I'm just already unsubbed. Like rather than trying to remember to do it, I just have to just unsub. Because I find that some places have the library and others do not. Netflix is another thing that I would be canceling, but probably because of the cost of it, because it's like $25 a month. Because I have a 4K TV. Well, it's for me. Oh, okay.
I pay for the high version because I want the 4K, and because Netflix has got high fidelity. It's a good app. It's got great like streaming bandwidth. Like 4K and Netflix looks amazing, and we'll get to that in just a second. So like there's that aspect of it is just it's worth it for me. But also when I go to unsub for something like Netflix, when I go and look at all of the stuff that I have on my watch list, 80% of it is Netflix originals, which means they're not going to go away. Like they're still going to be there when I come back in 2 months, 3 months, whatever, to watch whatever I want. Right.
Yeah.
It's not like other shows where, and I mean, Disney's the same way. The Marvel and Star Wars stuff, that's always going to be there. That's why it's such an easy thing to remove. Right. But then you see some movies will be on Prime for a couple months and then they won't be if they're not a Prime original.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff where like, I mean, I would keep Prime just because I keep the shipping anyway, but there are other services where I'd want to keep it because they're either not going away or they're tied into other stuff that I do. Like my Apple TV is all bundled now. And like, I use all that stuff anyway. So I might as well keep that. And I'm going to look into doing some family sharing. There's stuff like that can be done, but there's a couple of services that I really want to try and knock down as best I can. Speaking of Netflix, both you and I have been watching Blue-Eyed Samurai. And I will say now, we won't get into spoilers because I am only 2 episodes in, 2.5. I was actually halfway through episode over dinner tonight, hoping to finish it, but I took a phone call instead. And I'm really, really liking it. And it takes a lot. Good. It takes a lot for me to say how much I like something like this when it's animated, when it's CG, when it's an anime. Like there's a lot of things that usually stack against my normal likes and dislikes when it comes to animated stuff like this. And it's one of those things that I don't recommend lightly. Like I 100% think that people should check this out with a giant asterisk of it is a very adult show.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're probably saying the same thing I am right here.
Yeah, no, it is violent. There's nudity, there's sex, but like male frontal nudity. Like if you've watched Rome, then like you be prepared. And it's animated, so like it's a little weird. But they do it in a way that makes sense. Nothing is necessarily gratuitous. Like it's all part of the story or part of a character moment so far. I mean, obviously a show about a samurai, you expect there to be sword battles and stuff like that. But this is really over the top. But I think it's great that we just talked about the Marvels because this feels like a superhero movie, right? It feels like it's not just a samurai realistic history portrayal. It's like, this is like the superhero version of the tall tale of what samurais could do. And they've just realized that. And they're just presenting it to you as like, this is just normal. People can get cut in half. This is just normal, but it's going to happen all the time.
One thing I'll say about that though, is they don't, I mean, I know you don't like Invincible. I enjoy Invincible, but they would show like somebody being punched into pieces and then seeing all of their pieces go all over the place, like in the middle of the screen. Like that is the featured scene in it. So for me, like it's violent, and they will show some people like get cut in half sometimes, but there's also the time where the sword goes in and goes, and then like it pans off a little bit. Then you might see like blood and then a couple fingers fall. So they don't necessarily show
exactly
all of the crazy violence all the time. They do a couple times. So just if that's not your thing, just be aware. But it's
you may not want to eat while watching this show.
No, like this for me is an exceptional show. It's really, really quite beautiful to watch. It's a stunning show.
As an artist, the hand painted backgrounds, I've always admired background artists in animation, and I never took the time to get really good at it. I did a little bit when I was first starting, but because of my strength in character design at the time and my eye for cleanup and detail, that's where I ended up going. Like cleanup animation, like the black finished line that people saw on TV was what I was doing. And I'm trying to remember his name. I worked with a very talented background designer in one of my first studio jobs, and watching him and seeing the stuff that he would show and how he composed everything was just incredible. The amount of detail was just amazing. And it's like these beautifully hand painted backgrounds. It reminds me of Maurice Noble. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name, but Maurice Noble did a lot of Warner Brothers backgrounds. So imagine any Roadrunner cartoon where there's snow And just now think about what you've been seeing in Blue-Eyed Samurai, right? Like how the tree bark is painted with like the white snow on top of it. Like it's very Art Deco.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's really surprisingly similar to Maurice Noble, and it's beautiful. And the fact that they've done hand painted backgrounds, but CG characters. Now, sometimes there's CG elements in the background, like if a tree gets chopped in half and has to fall over, like that's CG. It's not hand animated, but there are things about it that just really, really meld very well. The characters are stylized, even though they are CG. They're flat. They have cell shading, and they're really, really well done. And they have really subtle textures. They have a variety of like face shapes and personality and body types, men and women of different, ages. Like this, just, it's not just all cookie cutter, something that can be a little bit guilty of in something like the Bad Batch, like Clone Wars people can all kind of look the same after a while.
Yeah.
Because they're so stylized, where this, I feel like they really give themselves a lot of leeway. And it doesn't handicap the diversity. Like they keep it really has its own look. Like now that I've seen 2 episodes, you could show me any still from any episode that I haven't seen, and I'd be able to like, that's from Blue-Eyed Samurai. I know it.
Yeah.
Because the art direction is solid. And I haven't had the time because I only just started watching yesterday or the day before, but like, I'm going to look up like the art direction. I would love to see the art of like any kind of behind the scenes. Usually when these things air, those artists that work on it start releasing all the stuff that they've been doing, over the last few years.
Yeah, finally, I can show you.
Exactly. No, totally. So I'm looking forward to looking that up and also I know that there's going to be some artists doing fan art and all kinds of crazy stuff. The other positive that I took away immediately was that how well shot it is. I know it's a cartoon, but they have I say cartoon, it's an animated feature, but they have the ability to put the camera wherever they want. And they do that very skillfully. There's close up of hands. There's shots being framed very specifically. There's a lot of really cool slow motion that happens in the fight scenes. And they're like,
just going to mention that,
comic book splash pages, like, sorry if I'm stealing your notes. I haven't read them. I'm just
no.
we're on the same page.
This one was just me feeding off what you said. And that's just one of the things I love, where like it goes in and out of slow motion really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the action sequences are just so precise, but so well choreographed. And there's a couple of times where it like verges on potentially unbelievable moves, but overall, I'd say like, other than those couple of times, it's close to 100% plausible. Like that, all of this stuff is doable by a master swordsperson. I feel the same way when I watched Across or Into the Spider-Verse for the first time. Like the only thing I could think of is like, it's so visually delicious. Like it's so good.
I think it's unique without being so unique that it's weird. Like it's familiar. Like you understand what you're looking at. It feels in some way, which is why the violence and I think in the nudity is so surprising, is because there's some subtle things about these side characters that you're just like, this reminds me of a Disney movie. Like it reminds me of Belle going through the town and talking to like the butcher and the baker and the librarian. And then the next thing you know, they're all naked. And you're like, wait,
the butcher's
what?
naked.
Like, didn't need to see that. But that kind of stuff is very, I think the reason why it kind of hits you is because we're all so used to seeing one level of quality, and that's either Studio Ghibli, Disney, Pixar, Illumination. What's the one that did Mario?
Illumination. Yeah.
Illumination. Yeah. So like all those houses, like you know that's the quality you're getting, but then you see something else that's on Netflix or some other thing. You kind of go into it with a slightly lower bar. Really good example would be The Dragon Prince. Like it's a very cool show at first. I haven't kept up with it, but
yeah, me either. Thanks for the reminder.
I didn't go into that thinking like this is going to be like Pixar, like this is going to like it. And it wasn't. The animation was good enough, but it was stiff, like it looked like a CG TV show. This does not have that vibe. Like this has like, they're using technology to their advantage to have it all melt away and just tell a beautiful visual story.
Yeah, they spent the full budget on this one.
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. And I haven't looked ahead. I think it's only 8 episodes. There was a trailer.
Yes, I believe it was.
There was a trailer at the end of the first episode that said like coming this season on Blue-Eyed Samurai. And I stopped it because I was like, I don't want to see all this. Like, I don't want to see all the visual spoilers. I want all that to happen in real time for me because I was so invested after the first episode.
I mean, I saw the trailer, but thankfully for me, I didn't. And I'm not saying this won't be for everyone, so don't go and watch it. But for me, I saw it all, but I didn't know how it fit into the story. So thankfully, my brain forgot it all. Like I didn't have this moment coming up to it and go, "Oh, that's where this is going to happen," kind of thing. I was just able to put it out of mind, and I didn't even really know. I thought it looked cool, but I didn't know much about it beyond that. And then once I got into it, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I need to watch 2 episodes before bed tonight. This is so so riveting." And just to let everyone know, basically, the story is about the main character Mizu, who's half white, half Japanese sword master with blue eyes, so like half Caucasian. That's where the blue eyes come in, and they're on a request, basically, of revenge. Like that's like the smallest plot I can give without giving anything away, and it's good.
They execute it very, very well. It's well paced. There's lots of humor, but the humor is not the kind of humor that you get in a Taika Waititi movie. Like it's not jammed down your throat, written joke on it, and then just like bashed into your teeth. Like it's subtle, and it doesn't come from Mizu. It comes from the other characters. Like Mizu is your superhero, super samurai swordsman, aka Thor, like the hero. And so Thor shouldn't be making all the jokes. Like it should be the side characters, like that kind of stuff. And this is what I can't remember his name right now. Ringo. Ringo is very funny. And I thought he was going to get annoying, but he quickly grew on me. Masaoka, old school from Heroes. Anybody remember that TV show on NBC?
Yeah. I've actually been thinking about watching that again.
Yeah. He is very funny in this. And I will say one line that had me roaring. It spoils nothing. Peaches.
Oh yeah.
And I roared. I was great callback. Like it was very, very well done. And that kind of stuff is the kind of consistency in his humor, right? He doesn't break the mold, but he plays very well inside of his box.
But he's not like your typical comedic relief type of character. He's not over the top. He's like, his humor comes across from him being like earnest and honest and trying to be true while also being just a very lighthearted human. Like just
the bumbling physical comedy makes you think that he's incapable, but then he proves himself to be capable in different ways. And so you think, at first, oh God, bumbling idiot that doesn't show up. Like, shut up. Like this is going to be the same for the next 8 episodes, and it isn't. And that's the thing, is like, okay, well, he's endearing, and like you said, he's cheerful and positive, which is funny considering all the violence that's going on. But then the way that he ends up showing up in other ways, again without any spoilers, that you're like, okay, like he's got different skill sets and he approaches things a little bit differently, but he has value. And that's what I think is really interesting, is that he has value to the story. He has value to Mizu beyond just his value to the viewer as comic relief. And I think that that's a really good balance. It's good writing, like I think that's something really strong about this. And one of the better voice acted characters. I think that to round them out, we've got Maya Erskine as Mizu, and I like her well enough. I think part of it is the way that she has to voice the character, and hopefully that will change. I'm only a couple episodes in, but if that doesn't change, that might be a little bit forced. And because I think that the arc for Mizu is obviously the whole season, I'm not getting much change in her personality. She tends to be pretty one note with a couple of little fun one-liners here and there, but it's so far, I don't want to say that the character is flat, but the character's dialogue is flat. And I'm hoping that changes.
She kind of reminds me of Ahsoka, though. Like, remember you were saying that? Because for me, I was saying Ahsoka seemed so just like one note and just so serious all the time. And then you kind of likened it to, you mentioned a samurai type of character when we were chatting about it. And I'm like, so I actually kind of see what you mean now. Like they have the same sort of that sternness to them, but heaviness.
Gravitas. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, just to go back to that cinematography, like you can look at shots of duels in this show and look at shots of duels from Ahsoka. It's the same. It's the same shot. Like it's the kind of thing where, like, did Filoni get a peek at Blue-Eyed Samurai before it went out? There's other actors as well. I really like Kari Hiroki Tagawa. He plays the old sword maker. George
Oh yeah,
Takei is Seki, and he's great. Not campy at all. And it took a minute for me to recognize who it was. It's like, it sounds like George Takei, but
yeah,
I could be wrong.
yeah. He's a really sincere character. Like
Yeah,
I like him quite a
and
bit.
really subtle acting as well. Brenda Song as Akimi, I think that's how you pronounce that character's name, delivers.
Akemi, yeah,
She's great.
yeah.
So I might get this wrong. Randall Park, who we all know from Marvel films, I think he plays Akemi's dad, Henji
Uh,
Shindo, or is he like
no,
the villain? He's the villain,
he's the right hand man of the evil white man.
right? Kenneth Branagh. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not him then, but whoever plays Akimi's dad, because again, I haven't really committed all the different Japanese names to memory. I
Mm.
don't particularly like his acting. And I think it's got less to do with the voice acting and more to do with the voice that they chose doesn't match the face that it's coming out of.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Like it sounds weird to say. There are so many other characters in this that are voiced by Japanese and or Asian actors. And the one white character, foreigner, I think he's supposed to be Scottish, is voiced by a white actor. But
Yeah.
then this one Japanese character, Akimi's dad, his voice doesn't match the culture that he's supposed to
Mm.
be in. It feels very weird. And I think the other thing is that this comes with one of my nitpicks, which is I can't turn off my animator eye. As much as I love all the things that are flowing into it, the lip sync in the show is often terrible. And it's not dubbed. It's not originally meant to be Japanese. It's meant to be in English. And
Right.
they put all this time and love into the character models, and their lips barely move when they talk. And if you watch any animated show from like Disney or Pixar, their mouths are almost over animated, and you kind of have to do that to communicate like mouth shapes and expression. And that's something that I've never liked about anime in general. The mouths have very little movement; they just kind of flap, and I can understand that disconnect when it's originally animated to be in Japanese, and then of course the lip sync is not going to match when it's English versus Japanese. Like that makes sense, like if it's overdubbed, right? But
Yeah.
with this being English originally, it really doesn't line up. A good example would be something like Legend of Korra or Avatar: The Last
Mm.
Airbender. Like the lip sync matches up there. Now they're more cartoony, they're more for kids, and so it's a little bit more over the top. And I think that is something that they could have done more of. And it's inconsistent because there's sometimes you get like a drunk village bystander, and the mouth animation is fantastic because it makes
Mm.
sense. Like he's loud and he's being belligerent, and he's like making stupid faces and all that kind of stuff. And so I find that especially with any of the and this is kind of like an interesting character design choice. Like there are some characters that have very small mouths, as a lot of I will say Asian people
Mm.
just tend to have smaller jaws and smaller mouths. Then there's also a kind of an Asian archetype where they have very broad, square jaws, big, wide eyes, and like a pointy nose, but then also like a great big mouth, often with like a long, skinny mustache or something like that. So they have a great big mouth, but then they talk and their jaw moves, but their lips barely flinch. And
Oh, right.
it looks like a puppet, and it drives me crazy. It's a small thing, like it's a small nitpick. It doesn't affect like my overall enjoyment of the show, but there's definitely like a little eye twitch that happens on the couch when it happens. It's like, God, you couldn't like you go all this way to do all this amazing stuff, and you can't finish that. Like just it's a close up of the face. Like could you at least animate the lips doing something? And it's the only time when you go, oh right, it's a CG puppet. Like it's not a hand drawn character. Like it's a CG puppet that just doesn't have the controls or doesn't they didn't do it to do that, and
Yeah.
that's frustrating. I find. Other than that, like I don't have a lot of shortcomings. Like a couple of the voice acting, like I said, and then the lip sync is really where I'm at. I've really enjoyed how the characters that Mizu is interacting with are either tied to her past or are reflections of past experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's a direct link. Sometimes like the little kid that bullied her is the grown man she has to deal with now. And then other times it's more about like the spirit of the person or something like that. And it's not always immediately obvious. I like how like you catch on a little bit later, like, oh, wait a minute. I recognize that attitude or that
Yeah.
stance, you know? there's a lot of really subtle things that happen with like the samurai standoffs where like you change your foot position and then the other person knows the move that you're going to make. So there's a bit of chess going on, and I'm not so in tune with it to be recognizing it, but I imagine there's probably things where like this person does this stance and then we don't see that person again until years and years later. And then they do the stance again or that pose and your brain goes, oh, but you don't really realize it yet. Like you haven't really had the reveal, but you kind of like, there's something familiar about this. Like they're making me pay attention to this for a reason. And it ends up paying off in the long run. Again, very, very cool stuff. I'm looking forward to watching more. Moving on into the Internet Minute, which is, of course, brought to you by you, dear listener. The Citadel Cafe is 100% listener supported. If you're getting value out of the show, please consider putting a little bit of value back in. You can become a member at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. Joining at any level will get you an invite to the member-only Discord server, shared with my personal Discord, and access to the Barista Cut bonus audio sessions. We also record the Citadel Cafe live now, and there are a number of people in our Discord right now enjoying the live recording. Special thanks to our Bean Counter patrons, Cosmic and Smurf588. Thank you ever so much for your support of this episode. Patron count is at 28, which is steady on from last time we recorded. Our goal each time we sit down to record is to have at least one more patron than the previous episode. If you would like to be patron number 29, visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. Now, this will surprise absolutely no one, but I, of course, have chosen a Lego set for my Internet Minute pick. But it is because it's Christmas time, it's December, toys are in the air, Lego has been releasing new things, and this is the Orient Express train, set 21344, 2,540 pieces, 5 inches high, 4 inches wide. You might think that doesn't sound very big. It's almost 4 feet long. So it has some length. The cost in Canadian is $389.99, which is too expensive for my blood. But it is a beautiful Lego model. We've talked before about that really delicate balance between Lego studs versus Lego plates. And I mean, you look at any of the close-ups of this steam engine and how it's constructed and engineered, and the fact that there's round pieces and curves and straight lines, and everything just really comes together and sings. I like trains, so it doesn't take a big push for me to really like, train models. But I don't think anybody could scoff at this if this was in your house, like along a mantelpiece or a sideboard or something. It's just like a decorative, piece of a model of history, the Orient Express. Like it's very, very cool. There's lots of details inside too. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at those, but the cars all have like people in them with like big fur coats and big hats, and there's dining tables and really ornate dividers and privacy screens and paintings on the wall, like super, super lavish kind of inside decor. And I just think it's one of Lego's better presentations, up there with all the the stuff that people want from a train. It's meant to be more of a display model. However, I think unlike the Harry Potter train that's just a display, this one does interact with the Lego track system.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I don't believe that this is powered out of the box. You'd probably have to figure out how to get a motor inside of it somewhere. Probably in the coal car would be my guess as the best place for it. But it does work with other tracks. So even if you had a moving train around your city and you wanted this to be on like a side part of it, it's on the right scale and it would work with the Lego track system. So I'm impressed. Can't say it's on my list just because of the price tag of it, and it's very specific. But yeah, very, very cool. What is your pick this week?
Surprise, surprise! It's not Lego. For me, it's a little app, a little utility for Mac OS. It's called Gestimer, as in like gesture/timer. So it's a really simple app that I've been using for a while, and I sort of don't even think about it because it's just there in my menu bar. But when I went to go check the preferences, there was a little thing that said Gestimer 2 came out, and so I didn't even know. It's been out for 6 months, but I just realized it, so I thought it'd be a good thing to mention. So it's a very simple app, has one purpose. So basically you click on it in the menu bar and you drag down and away from its spot in the menu bar. And the further you drag away from the menu bar, the more the timer goes up. So I know it sounds weird, but like you don't click and then type in 5-minute timer. You just yoink away from the menu bar, and then I like it because it doesn't have to be precise. It can be approximate. Like if I knew that an hour from now an hour-ish from now I wanted to do a specific thing, I just drag it down. It could be 56 minutes or 103. I don't care to be that precise. And then you let go, and a little window pops up, and you just type a little note in there, and it could be call mom, and then it automatically adds it to your reminders app / calendar app. Like it puts it in as a task, so you'll get the notification on your phone if you got it set up to do that, and then on your Mac. And so it's got a countdown timer, and you don't have to worry about it a lot. I use it in meetings when I don't want to have to then open up a new app, go and type some stuff in. If it's just a simple thing, then I'll just call so and so later. And I love it. It's I think it's more expensive than it used to be. It's $10, but I've gotten enough use out of it that I bought the second one, like as soon as I saw that there was a new one, and it's cheaper through the upgrade. And I'm going to try to get this right because it's not a usual. Usually, whenever there's an app for the Mac that you buy through the Mac App Store, you can't offer upgrade pricing. Like Apple doesn't allow that. So if you have version 1 of the app and it's $10, and you have version 2 of the app come out and it's $10 as well, you can't say, well, since you had version 1, you can get this at a discount. But what the Mac Store lets you do is create a bundle of apps. So like if there's a company that sold fitness apps and there's a yoga app for $20 and there's a weightlifting app for $20, but if you buy them together, you get them for like 50. You get the first one for $20 and you'll get the second one for 15 because it's a bundle. So what this person did is they had version 1 in the App Store still, and then they included version 2 in the bundle. So if you already bought version 1, then you can get version 2 for like $3 off. So they found a workaround for doing an upgrade in the App Store, which I thought that was kind of brilliant because I hadn't actually seen anyone do that before. It's neat.
I like the simplicity of it. I don't remember the name of what it was called, but I used to have an app. It had something to do with Time Machine and scheduling it. I mean, you can do that now natively, so obviously I don't have that anymore. But at the time, it was like $2 or $3, which was expensive in the App Store way back when. Like everything is either.
What? You want me to pay for it?
Yeah, if it was more than $1, you're like, I'm not buying that. But it was really, really just simple and easy to use, really straightforward. I find that there are a couple of apps now, especially when you use them all the time. I'll give a plug to Audio Hijack, which is what I use on my Mac to do podcasting, recording, and record audio to different channels and things. And it's fantastic. And it's not cheap. It's like $30 or $40 altogether. But they're outside of the App Store. They operate out of the website. And they do, within their app, they've built in that upgrade pricing. So like new Audio Hijack 3, $45. If you already own Audio Hijack 2, the upgrade price is $20. And I'm like, sign me up. I use this twice a week. Like I will absolutely buy it. And it's not like it's into the $100. And thankfully, they have not gone the way of everybody else and started to charge a subscription for access to it. Don't tell them, right? Yeah. No, but they charge for it, they maintain it, they update it, free updates throughout, its cycle as it gets more features or bug fixes or like whatever. Honestly, what usually happens is Mac OS ends up with something new, and then Audio Hijack then takes advantage of that, and then they send out a free update. And it's only when like the architecture changes for Mac OS and they have to say, all right, look, we have to go to like Audio Hijack 4. So like
we rewrote everything.
You have to buy the new one, and that's fine. And so I've stuck with them. Rogue Amoeba is the name of the company. I'll see if I can remember to put the links and stuff in the notes for this week. But yeah, no, I really like them. And there's something to be said for these simple apps. Like I don't have a lot going on my Mac menu bar, but like there's a couple things that I really like having up there. I know I have a LastPass password manager, like I've got some other things that are up there that are really fun. As a matter of fact, Audio Hijack has a little icon there that I can use to monitor. So like if I didn't want to have the whole thing down in front of me for just the timing, I could check on it from time to time, which is nice. I tend to be more controlling when I'm hosting a show. I kind of like to know where we are, in terms of the grand scheme of things. And that, folks, is at the end. That's where we're going to wrap up this episode of the Citadel Cafe. If you want to get some information about the show, links to things that Steven and I talked about is all at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod. You can email the show at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com or find the show by name on social media. Subscribe for free on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can share the show with friends. Word of mouth is the easiest way to support the show. Just tell a few friends about the Citadel Cafe and where they can go to listen to it. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything that I'm doing online at joelduggan.com, including a link to the Spawn Chunks, my other podcast about Minecraft. And you can follow me on social media at Joel Duggan and Joel Duggan on Twitch, where I stream at least 3 days a week. Most of the time it's been satisfactory with Minecraft on the weekends, but that's going to be taking an uptick because, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Minecraft 1.20.3 is out now, and I have some work ahead of me. So I'll be probably splitting my time between both Satisfactory and Minecraft going forward. Steven, where can people find you online?
Most often these days at twitch.tv/StevenESC. And again, that's Steven with a PH. And since we were talking about Mastodon, I am on the main Canadian instance, mstdn.ca/@StevenESC if you want to give it a go.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.